We talk about grieving. We always say it's actually very important for family members to come together, to grieve together. Like for example, if they can talk about the deceased, they can share about memories, happy and the not so happy one, what they used to do together with the deceased. So it's by talking and processing their emotions and the memories that in a way it helps the person to integrate these feelings within themselves. And in a way that's how we can actually help the person move on. But then we know in reality, right, things don't always happen like that. What happens when family are not able to help the person to grieve?
Yes, I had a client who has been sick for many years, and she has been the main caregiver for him. So when husband passed on, she described to me that her life collapses because the identity that she has carried with her for a long time, the caregiving role no longer is there. And what makes it worse is she can't grieve in the context of own home environment. Because the son had a very bad relationship with the father, and the son outrightly told her that he didn't want to be involved in any of his care matters, even if he died, it's none of our business. So definitely that is very sad to hear someone from the son. She just don't have the space to grieve. She can't cry in the house, she has to go somewhere else to grieve.
So that is really huge impact because she's struggling actually with two things. One is her identity, her role as a caregiver, which is also lost because now she's no longer, she lost that role already, and she need to struggle and find new meaning for her own life, but missing the husband, being sad about him being gone, and she got to keep all this to herself because there's no one else that she can turn to. But the other extended family members she can turn to for help, and was it helpful for her?
She has the husband's sister who she sometimes will turn to. However, clients sometimes would say certain things that people say to them. Like, he's in a better place now, it's good for you, you're no longer having to care for him, move on, keep busy. These kind of statements. But to them, to the person who is grieving, it's like you're telling the person, you don't grieve, move on with life. And it's difficult because you're not acknowledging the feelings, the emotions that come along with the loss of the loved one.
So even though there could be other family members or other people, friends, well-meaning friends, but sometimes inevitably some of the things they say actually doesn't help in the grieving process, even though they meant well. So I guess in that context, if the person really had difficulty grieving, I think it would be more helpful if they can seek professional help. So in this case, how do you think counselling actually has helped her?
Counsellors are trained to listen and sit with the client's pain. So just providing the space for client, the safe space for client to kind of vent, to kind of like share the loss of that loss, and talk about like what you said earlier, the good things and even also good things about the deceased. Actually, it's very helpful for them to process that grief. So somebody sitting with them, listen patiently, not dismissing the emotions. That space is important for them. It's helpful for them. Yeah, and we need to know that all of us grieve differently. There's no say, you only can grieve like X number of days and number of months. But generally, most of my clients, they kind of have that ability to move on. Space for them is important. Yeah, listen without interrupting.
So actually, grieving is a very natural process, but a lot of time maybe because we do not understand, and we saw some people in grief, especially if in deep grief and a lot of very deep emotions, and most people get very frightened, and so they want to cut it off, they want the person to move on. They didn't realize that by doing so actually is causing it more difficult for the person. So the counselling process, by being there, by holding the person in that space, providing them that space and the time, and allowing them to just emote, that actually is a healing process, and people will be able to move on slowly, and the healing process can just go on, it won't be cut short. And contrary to a lot of what people say, so if you talk about it, the person will always remain in that sad state. It's not our experience. We notice that if the person is able to talk about it, then they are also able to move on and attend to the day-to-day thing. They kind of move on, like toggle between these two, right? Like
Yes,
thinking of the deceased and then moving on to do the daily tasks. But this process is necessary.
Yes, that's important, and most of us are able to do that. We all cope differently. So initial symptoms like not able to eat, not able to sleep well, this period of time may be different for each of us. Some may see these kind of symptoms for a week or two, some even can last a month. But usually what I probably get more worried is if it's a prolonged symptoms, is like already 1, 2 months, 3 months, and the person basically hide himself at home, not going out, then not eating well. All this, yes, we are worried because it impacts the safety of the person. But generally, if the person, reduced appetite for the initial days, it seems like depressive symptoms, but the person is still able to kind of function, still able to have a bit of self-care, then as day goes and observe the symptoms kind of getting lesser, so means the person is kind of on the way of like what seems to be like a normal grieving process.
Yeah, so sounds like for most of us, even family members, I think the most important takeaway is that just be there, just hold the person in that space, don't be afraid of the emotions that's coming up, and the person, will slowly move on from there rather than trying to rush them in any way or cut off the grieving process in any way.
Yeah, you can also appreciate sometimes it's so difficult for the family members, the family can't lose somebody, deal to that, and the person, as much as they want to be there for, let's say for a mom who has lost the spouse, and the son wanted to be there for the mom, but the son may not be able to contain his emotions as well. We also have difficulty trying to know what to say in this difficult period of time. Yeah.
So I guess that's when counselling comes in. If let's say the family member, due to whatever difficulties that they have or their own grief, and they are not able to support the other person, then I think the professionals can come in to play a role.
Yes, definitely.